what he has done over and over again, and may be doing this time, you play the Madman card. I think he does it very successfully. I'm crazy, me. You don't know what I might do.
I can welcome to the programme now Tim Marshall, foreign affairs expert, author of Prisoners of Geography. Hi to you, Tim.
Hello, John.
Hi, I'm going to start with you, Tim, with that, I suspect, unanswerable question, which is this looming trade war, this fatal blow potentially to the Western alliance. It's inflamed by President Trump, and the only winner is Vladimir Putin. Can you make sense of it?
I hope so, partially, and I agree with everything you've said, including the bit about Putin. I mean, he may be thinking of Napoleon's great quote, "Never interrupt your enemy," when he's making a mistake. However, that said, remember 2016, apparently Trump never wanted to be president. Well, that turned out to be completely wrong. He was going to be impeached, wasn't he, successfully? Well, that turned out to be wrong. He was going to start lots of wars, wrong. He was going to invade Panama, wrong. He was going to withdraw all the troops from Europe, wrong. So the narrative that he's going to invade Greenland, based on that track record, is probably wrong, although because it's Trump, you can't rule it out. So what is he doing in that case? Well, when you look at many of the things he's done, including last year's tariff wars, where apparently there's going to be 200% tariffs on China and they were going to reciprocate, and it didn't happen. So what he has done over and over again, and may be doing this time, you play the Madman card. I think he does it very successfully. I'm crazy, me. You don't know what I might do. He then goes in all tweets blazing. And he then goes in with maximalist, his first pitch, and refuses to rule things out. And if you look back at the tariffs, if you go in and say, I want a gazillion, trillion% tariffs, and you end up with a net gain of 10%, a lot of people said, oh, he's climbed down. He hadn't. He actually won a 10% raise in the tariffs. I'm not talking about whether that's a good idea for economic reasons. I don't fully understand them. The point I'm making is that what he's saying now and the threats that he's making, which are ugly and uncouth and wrong, but they're not necessarily meaning that that's his end point. And so what I think he's doing, and it is, of course, a guess, is that he is bullying the Europeans into paying more to defend Greenland, because I think they genuinely think that Greenland, they need it. But he doesn't want to pay for it. He wants to get the Europeans to pay for it. And already, I don't know if you saw at the weekend, we sent General Symbolic and Captain Token over there to make a point. I think you're going to see this week at Davos them lining up to saying, well, yes, maybe we should pay more.
Okay. I think I may have lost you for a moment there, Tim Marshall. Do we still have Tim Marshall on the line?
The broad explanation, they're going to queue up at Davos, and the key meeting is Thursday at the EU.
Yes.
Are they really going to be unified at that point, or are they at that point they're going to have said to Trump, we might have to start thinking seriously about paying more?
Okay, you make a very, very impressive stab at rationalising what the president is doing here. The madman theory, keeping everyone guessing. I mean, those among his supporters keep on telling us this is not irrational. It's three-dimensional chess that nobody understands except for Donald Trump. But what is also clearly undeniable, Tim, is we've now got a chasm of mistrust open up between America and its allies in Europe and elsewhere. That carries a cost, and that's nothing but destructive. If he follows through on tariffs at almost whatever level now, there will be some form of retaliation from those, especially European members of NATO, because you only have to push tariffs a bit further and trade with the United States become pretty much uneconomic. And that will hurt American jobs. That will hurt American businesses. That does raise the risk of let's call them moderates in the Republican Party biting back. And that will have a political cost too. So you do a great job of superimposing sense on all of this. But I also then suggest to you that nothing can make it quite sensible.
Yeah, I agree with you. I stand by my original prognosis, and I don't think what you just said counteracts it. but we will have to see what comes out at the end of it. And you're right when you talk about the damage done. And it's not just economic damage, that this is actually different, because if he is using economic tariffs to bully NATO allies over territory, that's a different thing to economic policy. So I think it is at another level, and I think it's deeply, deeply damaging to the transatlantic alliance and the family of nations. But here's the last thing, probably you'll let me get away with, John. I'm detecting right across the last few weeks that America's patience with Trump is running out as well. I mean, we're also detecting that flattery gets you nowhere, which is what we've learned. You've seen a lot of very sensible Republicans recently starting to surface. And I think when you get past the midterms, you will begin to see the power slowly ebbing away from Trump. And although America's direction of travel is going to remain the same, the manner in which they conduct their business, depending on who is the next president, may not necessarily if it's Vance, but it may return to some form of normality. So I think that the Europeans are right to push back, but simultaneously try to hedge their bets. I think they may well end up paying more to defend Greenland, and then they're going to try and get as far as they can in this year, and then try to patch things together. But your overall point is right. We are in a dangerous time where there could be this parting of the ways.
All right, Tim, I will leave it there for now and hopefully talk again soon. I'm sure there'll be any number of reasons why I will want to do that. Tim Marshall,
yes.
Thank you. I just want to bring you this bit of breaking news now, which is just in from here at home. It's this: the retired Chief Constable Craig Guilford, who has retired from the West Midlands Police as Chief Constable over the row about his force's decision to bring about the banning of those Tel Aviv football fans, Maccabi, in that game in the area. He is being referred to the police watchdog by West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner Simon Foster over that decision. More on that story as it comes in. Now, let me say hello, good afternoon to Simon Fraser, the former head of the Foreign Office. Hello to you, Simon.
Hello, good afternoon.
It's good to have you here. Can I ask you this first of all? If you were at the table today and over the weekend, and you were giving advice to Keir Starmer on the tone to take now about this Greenland crisis and a contingency plan if the Trump tariffs go ahead, what would your advice be?
Well, I just want to say before I answer the question that, in my view, the threat from President Trump is quite astonishing against European allies, and it's a sort of predatory behaviour, which is difficult to respond to. Frankly, also, I thought when I read his message to the Norwegian Prime Minister, I honestly thought it was a spoof when I first read it, but Obviously it isn't. So he's taken us by surprise, and we do need to work out how to respond. And I do think that up to a point, Keir Starmer was right in saying that we need to manage the response and to keep a cool head, and that we shouldn't move instantly into sort of retaliatory threats and retaliatory action, partly for the reasons that your previous contributor was talking about, which is you never quite know what Trump's objective is. So I can understand that. But on the other hand, well, what does that mean? That means we've got 2 weeks to negotiate now. And that's fine, and we should try and work with other Europeans to do that. But against that, if you're going into a negotiation, you do need leverage in that negotiation, and you need some form of deterrence. And my concern would be if the UK message was to signal unreadiness to contemplate some form of retaliation or response in any circumstances. I don't think that's what he did say, because he said, I understand he said, we're not there yet.
Yes.
But I think it's really important that we don't just sort of send a signal that we're going to find an accommodation regardless.
Yeah, he did leave open the option of reacting to economic aggression in the form of tariffs with economic aggression. He didn't commit himself to it, but he did not close that option.
That's right. I
mean, is it further possible for Britain to strike a side deal on this, some sort of carve-out, Simon? Because obviously a trade war would be appalling in its cost to this country. It could drive us into recession, conceivably, But to strike some sort of side deal and end up with a deal in some way, better, that compares well to what is landed on our other NATO partners, that would leave us in a really uncomfortable position. It would look like a betrayal, wouldn't it?
Well, the first thing I want to say on that is, Keir Starmer is right to say that a trade war helps nobody. But you've got to remember, the US is waging a trade war against us and against other Europeans. They have already levied a unilateral 10% tariff on the UK, higher on other Europeans, and now they're proposing a further 10% at the 1st of February. That's a 20% across the board tariff. Yes. That is a very significant thing. So, of course, we don't want to escalate that further, but that is the reality that we are facing, okay? On your point about a side deal, the difficulty for the UK is we don't have that many options because we are very much the weaker party in the relationship with the United States. That's one of the consequences of us no longer being a member of the European Union in this sort of context. So we have limited choices, but I do think that it's important that we are seen to show solidarity with other Europeans on this. And if we can help the negotiation with the Americans because of the supposedly better, more privileged relationship we have, then great. I think it would be, in the long run, dangerous if we were to come out of this further separated from European NATO allies through the action we take.
I mean, the principle of deterrence applies here, doesn't it, Simon? We don't have an independent nuclear deterrent. We don't have Trident submarines and missiles because we want to use them. We have them in hope of never having to use them. And in this case, being willing and eventually, ultimately, saying we're willing to use painful sanctions that would hurt us as well as America, just as a nuclear strike would hurt us as well as an enemy, well, then that strengthens our arm and perhaps forces some sort of rethink. And that would be the point. It would be counterproductive, let me suggest to you, to back down and get some sort of softer deal, as well as a betrayal of all the principles that Keir Starmer articulated.
Yeah, I agree with you. And of course, he did start his statement very strongly with the articulation of those principles. But I think when you talk about deterrence and response, I mean, there are a number of things we can do. First of all, we have to make absolutely credibly clear to the US that we are useful for them in many ways, that we work with them in Ukraine, we have a huge economic relationship with them and so forth, and that matters. And therefore that they are damaging themselves in damaging the relationship with us. And that is an important set of messages to get across. But beyond that, I do think that we have to be ready to at least have a contingency package of measures in place that we would be prepared to adopt if we were pushed to the very brink. That's not to say that we want to do that, but just to, and I'm sure the government are doing this because they must do. I mean, British businesses will not want us to escalate this war, but equally, if the tariffs are imposed, they will not want to feel that the government is not able or willing in some way to take action to seek to address the problems that they're facing.
Okay, last question. It's a more political question. If charm and appeasement turns out to be absolutely fruitless, do you believe that the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has what he needs to have in him to be an economic war leader, to be the voice of defiance for this country and a voice of defiance across Europe?
Well, I mean, I think in the longer term, so he's pursued a policy, a tactical policy of trying to hug America close, and I understand that. But in the longer term, I do think our strategy has to be to hedge our dependence on America because of the behaviours we're seeing. Not to walk away from the relationship with the US, which is so important, but to reduce that dependence over time. And we need strong leadership. Given the history of the special relationship, we need strong political leadership to explain that to people and to explain what it could entail. And I'm not sure that it's not Keir Starmer doesn't have it, or indeed this government, but I'm worried that the governing party at the moment is unable to face that reality and some of the consequences which might flow from it in terms of the reallocation of public spending and so forth.
Really important point. Simon Fraser, former head of the Foreign Office and founder of Flint Global and the chair of Chatham House. Simon, thank you.